Okay, we're going to get started with our last webinar of our Parent Like a Pro series. We're very excited to get started. So the title of our webinar this evening is going to be Steps to Sleep Success and Baby Sleep and Routines. My name is Dr. Natalie Barnett. I am the VP of Clinical Research here at Nanit. I have been at Nanit for more than 7 years now, and I am the mostly proud mother of 3 boys. And I'm joined this evening by Dr. Aubrie DeBear, who is joining us from the West Coast. And we're super excited about, Aubrie joining us this evening. We'll let her introduce herself in a second. So we are very excited to be hosting our last webinar of our Nanit Parent Like a Pro Summit for September 2023. And the title of our webinar this evening is going to be Steps to Sleep Success, Baby Sleep and Routines. So we're super excited about Aubrie joining us. And Aubrie, I wondered if, you wanted to introduce yourself in a second. There's a couple of things that I wanted to go over first, but then we'll dive right in and have you introduce yourself. We are going to be having a giveaway this evening. So at the end of the webinar, we're going to be giving away a Nanit sound and light machine, as well as an ultimate baby sleep bundle guide from Dr. Aubrie, which we're super excited about. Thank you for that, Dr. Aubrie. And additionally, everyone who attends a Parent Like a Pro webinar is going to be entered to win a $500 gift card to nanit.com. And this is going to be as I said, this is the last webinar of the series, and we will be announcing that winner by the end of this week. So I would love to jump right in, Dr. Aubrie, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hi. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and what an awesome giveaway you guys have for the people who are joining today. It's so great. So some of you might know me as Baby Sleep Doctor on social media. I am a baby and toddler sleep expert, and my professional background is also in clinical and forensic psychology. So I bring in some of that mental health aspect also when it comes to sleep for parents and families. I'm a mom of 2 at the moment, 4 and 6-year-old. And in the next few weeks, I will be the mom of 3 children. So sorry if I run out of breath while I'm talking.
So you're in the thick of it. Okay.
I'm in the thick of it.
Absolutely. All right. So I am going to jump right in. And, there's a lot of talk around safe sleep and the importance of safe sleep. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about, exactly what we mean when we say safe sleep, and really sort of highlight the things that are important when we're thinking about creating sort of a safe sleeping environment for our babies.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's such an important topic. And the thing to keep in mind is that baby sleep and safety is always evolving. So we're always learning more about, okay, don't do that anymore, or this is what works and why. So we're always trying to keep up with that information. But I think that for parents to keep in mind that it's really about taking steps to ensure that you are working on protective factors rather than increasing risk factors when it comes to your baby's sleep environment or the way that you're working towards their sleep. So there are things that we can absolutely do that are in our control that we can work on to make sure that we're putting up the safest environment for our little ones in their sleep. So the ABCs of sleep are alone in the crib, meaning no bumpers, no blankets, no pillows, no stuffed animals. They're alone. Boring. B, or back to sleep. So putting babies on their back to go to sleep. If they roll, that's a different conversation, but putting them down to start on their back. And then C is in the crib or a safe bassinet, following manufacturer requirements, in their own safe sleep space.
Amazing. And so tell me how those recommendations change as a baby gets a little bit older.
Sure. So again, talking about a bassinet, maybe moving to a crib. So when a little newborn is growing and they meet those height or weight requirements for the bassinet, it's no longer safe for them to sleep there. They have to be moved into an actual crib. If they're able to roll over, you still, like I said, put them down on their back, but we can kind of talk about when they roll, is it okay to let them sleep on their tummies after that? Moving the crib mattress down as they're able to do more physically. So babies who can sit up need to be lowered a little bit further down. So the more skills that they have, the more we have to kind of pay attention to what their sleep environment looks like and make some changes.
Yeah, I love that. And I love one of the points you mentioned was, transitioning a baby from a bassinet to a crib. And the thing that we love to recommend to families is thinking about that transition somewhere before the 4-month mark. And look, a lot of families will have their babies in the full-size crib from when the baby gets home, which is great. And there, there's no requirement to have a baby in the bassinet and then transfer them to the crib. But for a lot of families, it's very convenient to have them in the bassinet to start with. But we really love to think about transitioning them to the crib by the time they're about 4 months. We want you to think of the crib as being kind of like a gym for your babies. They're practicing at night all of the things that they're learning during the day. And we really want them to have that freedom of movement to sort of move around that crib space and, do all of the growing that they need to do at nighttime. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that transition. So the next thing that I would love to think about or ask is, when is it okay to introduce, perhaps a lovey or even, a pillow or a blanket?
So, like I said, things are always kind of evolving and changing as far as recommendations. So at least 12 months old for a lovey or a stuffed animal. The longer that you can wait, the better. I mean, a lot of times we introduce things because we as parents think, oh my gosh, they're going to love to have this stuffed animal with them. Or I think they're uncomfortable. They should have a pillow. And they're fine. They don't really need that. They don't know that they're missing that. So the longer that you can wait. But for things like a pillow or a blanket, usually the recommendation is at least 18 months, even 2 years if you can wait. And a blanket also is once they're out of the crib, because then there's less of a risk of kind of getting tangled up and suffocating, even if they are 18 months old. So moving to the bed is usually when we introduce a pillow or a blanket.
Yep. No, that's great. And, a great alternative to a loose blanket would be, a wearable blanket or a sleeping bag, in that, it's going to be, if you are worried about your little one, being cold in those winter months, or you're not able to really sort of regulate your room temperature, that's a nice way for you to feel, to ease any concern about that you may have about having your baby get too cold. So we really love to suggest a wearable blanket. So I'm so happy that you gave us that really lovely outline of when is a good time to be introducing those things. So thank you for that. So the next thing that I would really love to talk about is a little bit about creating a bedtime routine. Can you tell us a little bit about when you think it's important to start creating a bedtime routine, and what do you like to recommend as a bedtime routine?
Well, it really is up to when parents feel that they're up for it. It's never too early to start a bedtime routine, put it that way. So with my daughter, my firstborn, I was so excited coming home from the hospital. I was like, we're starting today with a bedtime routine. Might be too soon for some people. They might be like, I just got out of the hospital. I'm not interested in a bedtime routine. I'm not doing it. And that's okay too. Excuse me. So it's when you feel that you have the energy for it, but there are a lot of benefits to a bedtime routine, and it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be drawn out, but having something that happens consistently each night to kind of wind down the body and the mind for us as parents too, but also for babies. I mean, little newborns, they don't have their circadian rhythm it's not developed until close to 12 weeks. So one way that they can kind of start to differentiate day versus night is based on environmental cues. So being able to kind of have it look different for them over time, that this is not just another nap. This is something we want you to start sleeping longer stretches over time. This happens only at night. We have a little bath. We read a page of a story. We go into a dim room for a feeding. Doing something that's a little bit different, even for newborns, can be helpful. If it's stressful for parents, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. But it's never too early, is what I would say. And then, like I was saying a minute ago, the environment is a real trigger for our bodies and for our minds. So having a dark room, turning on a sound machine, having a bath. It can be a physiological experience that really triggers the mind to see this is a different type of sleep. The bath only happens at this time of day. It's different from any other time of the day or type of sleep. So those types of things can be really helpful over time in helping little ones to sleep longer stretches.
And really helping babies sort of, as you said, really understanding that this is a cue that it's, that it's time for bed and time for the longer, hopefully, nighttime stretch of sleep. And I really love that you talk about a bath, talk about a white noise machine. I really love to say to families though that if a bath is too stressful for you, or your baby doesn't like, because a lot of newborns don't like a bath, or a lot of older babies don't like a bath. If your baby doesn't like it, it's very stressful for you. Don't worry about it. Do it at a different time of the day, or give your baby a bath, every couple of days. They're not really getting dirty in those early months, and they may not necessarily need to be bathed every day. If it's something that you enjoy, your baby enjoys, and it really becomes an enjoyable part of the bedtime routine, I would say go for it. But you know what? We want to try and we want to make sure that families understand that it's not an essential. Nothing is an essential part of the bedtime routine, right? We really want them to sort of understand that. We would love you to create your own bedtime routine and what works for your family. And, as you mentioned, Aubrie, the important thing is consistency. We really want to make sure that we're doing something that can be fairly easily replicated, night after night, and from caregiver to caregiver, so that, grandma is doing the same thing as dad, is doing the same thing as mom, is doing the same thing as the babysitter. So it's really nice to think about how we can, start to create these bedtime routines, because we know all of the scientific evidence shows us that babies who have consistent bedtime routines sleep longer and sleep better. So it's not just that we think it's a nice thing to do. It really can have these really long-term benefits to your baby's sleep. So, and I think it's a really nice way to think about helping your baby really establish some healthy sleep habits early on. So I love that you mentioned that. So tell us a little bit about why you like white noise.
So for me, white noise is about helping babies kind of stay asleep. And my kids still use the white noise, so even older children. But it's not about putting your baby to sleep. It's about blocking out any distracting sounds that might wake them out of sleep. So it doesn't need to be right next to your baby's crib or their ear. It should actually be closer to where sound might be coming from. So, you put your children down and you want to go back into the kitchen, put the sound machine by the door so that they aren't woken up by your noise outside. So having some outside sound to just kind of be consistently blurring out anything that might disrupt them from sleep.
Yep. And it really becomes a really nice sleep association for babies. They can be hearing at the beginning of the night the white noise, or whatever noise that you have playing. It then becomes, again, a sleep cue for them, so that they know, and we're going to be playing that white noise all night. And then so they know when they wake up in the middle of the night, they can see that it's dark, they can hear the white noise, and they know that they've got to get themselves back to sleep. So, and it really comes back to this idea of consistency. We really want to have this, consistent bedtime routine, consistent sleeping environment. And so if we're playing white noise at the beginning of the night, it's going to be really important that it's what your baby hears when they wake up in the middle of the night as well. Because we've got to remember that what babies need to get themselves to sleep at the beginning of the night will be what they need to get themselves back to sleep in the middle of the night. So, and a white noise machine, or the Nanit sound and light machine, can be a really nice way to think about having that consistency. And also too, I really love a white noise machine for travel. It just becomes a really easy way to recreate your home environment when you're somewhere else, because LA sounds different to New York, sounds different to the Catskills, sounds different to Miami. And it's really nice when you are traveling with your baby, if you're which many people are going to be traveling for Thanksgiving and perhaps traveling over the holidays, that it can be a really nice way to recreate that home environment, and hopefully it can make that traveling transition easier for your babies as well. So I really love to encourage a white noise machine, and one that can be fairly easy to travel with.
That's a great point, that it can recreate the home environment wherever you are, just little aspects that are the same, and that's a big one.
Yeah. Now, thinking about Nanit, we really give parents a lot of data through our app. There's a lot of data that is thrown at our parents. Can you tell us, in your experience, how your families are using Nanit, or how you see, what you see as important about the Nanit data that we're giving to parents?
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, I have only ever used Nanit. My sister actually bought me my first Nanit when my daughter was born, and she's 6. So I have always been a Nanit user. I love it for my own kids, but I especially recommend it with clients because it can be really easy to feel like there isn't success, or there isn't something that's happening or changing. But then when you actually sit down and you look at the data and you say, well, actually that night they slept for longer chunks than they have in the last 3 months, or they only woke up 2 times instead of 5 times. And you can actually look back, because when our little ones aren't sleeping, we're not really remembering correctly what's been going on. So number one, being able to see that data in real time of, oh, this is actually what that night looked like, or that nap looked like. And then being able to compare maybe what happened during that day to make that night go so smoothly, so we can recreate it. And so being able to actually look at real data about your child and what's been happening is really helpful in the process of working on sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and it's really easy when you're in the thick of sleep training or helping teach your baby to sleep, to be sort of so focused on the particular day or the particular night, and sort of get a little bit lost in, thinking, oh, I'm, failing at this. My baby is really not sleeping well. And I think it's just so lovely to have that, those objective data over, these longer periods of time, so you can really see that your baby has actually made some objective improvement over time, which I think it really is, really is key to helping parents feel, confident in their, abilities to help their babies learn how to sleep. So I think that's really a lovely thing to be able to do. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes.
So now, a lot of us have kids who are at school as well as younger kids. Can you tell us a little bit about how you manage, when you're working with families, how you would manage them thinking about heading back to school and dealing with, school routines as well as, baby routines?
Sure. Well, so basically, I think that it's important to go back to the issue of consistency. And so having a consistent and early bedtime, especially for kids who are in school, it's really important. So even though they might be taking a nap at daycare or at school and coming home and not being nearly as tired as they should be by bedtime, we really want to make an early bedtime a priority. And that goes also for, obviously, they're waking up earlier in the daytime too. Now, if you have another child who is at home, is that what you mean? Like there's a baby at home while one child is at school? So, I mean, you can, like, you want to talk about the baby, maybe the baby has a nap time routine or something that falls during the day when the child is at school?
Yeah, or how you're dealing with, how you manage, how do you suggest people manage their, their baby's routine whilst they're also trying to, get their older kids into a good routine getting back to school?
I think that as far as bedtime routines, it's important to try your best to do as much of it at the same time as you can. So for me, with multiple kids, they can take baths together. You can be feeding the baby while you're reading books to the older child. If there's another adult in the house, obviously that makes it easier, right? You can kind of split things up. But even so, even if when it's been me and my husband together, we still try to do as much as we can together so that there isn't any kind of feeling of like, she gets mom, but he gets dad. And so we try to do things together, early and consistent bedtime. If you can, hopefully your toddler or older child has some independent sleep skills so that you can kind of put them to bed first and then work on baby sleep with your younger one. that would be my recommendation, is to try to work on things together as much as possible in the evening.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I actually really love to recommend that that if families can, that they get the younger one to bed earlier, and spend some individual one-on-one time with the older ones. You know, we really see very often when there's a new sibling comes into the house that, you know, the older sibling or siblings can be sort of, you know, really craving attention, and it really can be hard to be giving that one-on-one attention during the day when there is a newborn and there's a lot of activity in the house. So I really love to think about trying to carve out some one-on-one time with that, you know, with that toddler or older child if you can, you know, and I think, and it often ends up in, you know, meaning that their sleep really benefits because they're getting that, you know, positive attention during the day and not sort of requiring that, you know, that negative attention overnight. So
you know, so just to clarify, usually young infants are going to sleep later. So that's why
sure.
that's what I'm kind of referring to. But I absolutely agree that
Yeah.
making special time for an older sibling, especially when there's a new baby in the family, right? It's very important. So if there's another adult in the home who can maybe take the newborn while mom gets to spend special time during the routine, that's absolutely very important.
Yeah. And look, I mean, and to your point, you know, those early weeks are going to be, you know, really sort of all over the place anyway, you know, your baby's schedule is going to be, you know, a lot less predictable than what you are used to with your older child. So, you know, you just got to get through the day and through the night. So,
Yeah.
so I really like that. Okay. So tell us about, I'm going to change gears here a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about, you know, sleep training or sleep teaching. Can you tell us what your, you know, philosophy is around sleep training, and if you think it's safe for babies to be sleep training their babies?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I think it's safe, and the research would show that it is in fact safe, but not all babies need to be sleep trained and not all families have to do it. So if it's not something that feels right for you, you don't have to do it. But what I like to say is if the sleep situation is not working for someone in the family, whether it's the parents or the child, then something should change. And sleep is so crucial for parents to be able to be parents and humans during the day. And sleep is so crucial for babies, for their development, that we really should be making sleep a priority. So if it's not working, if something is not going well, if someone is not getting the sleep that they need and you want to work on sleep, then sleep training is a great option. And so what sleep training is essentially teaching, I don't like to say teaching, but giving the space to the child to learn their own ways of falling asleep without too much intervention from parents. So sometimes we as parents jump in too quickly, like, oh, they must be hungry, I'll feed them to sleep, or they might need the pacifier, they need this, they need that from me. And really, we're kind of hindering our child from sleeping well. And if we just kind of stepped back for a minute, they might actually go to sleep and go back to sleep.
Sure.
So sleep training is, I mean, you could Google it. There are a million different ways to do it, and you could find one that fits your philosophy well and give it a shot, you know, but so sleep training is not one way to do it, but the basic message is giving children the opportunity to fall asleep independently.
Yep. And I love that. And to your point, you know, there's so many different sleep training methods out there, and it's really important that, you know, families find, you know, a method that works for them, because, you know, to your earlier point, you know, it's all about consistency. So whatever you do, whatever method you choose and feels right for you, we just want you to be consistent about it, and, you know, and really give it, you know, a couple of weeks, you know, to have your babies really sort of learn those skills, you know. And look, and to your, you know, to your earlier point, a lot of babies don't need to be sleep trained. You know, sleep is a learned skill, and a lot of babies learn it really easily and really quickly without you know, any intervention. But there's some babies who really just need some dedicated time and some dedicated effort to learn how to sleep. And, you know, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a crapshoot. You may get a baby that, learns to sleep very, very quickly and easily, or you may have a baby who really needs some of that sort of dedicated effort to learn how to sleep. So I'm really glad that you made that point. So tell us a little bit about how sleep habits sort of change as your child gets a little bit older, and how you manage that.
Sure. Well, a lot changes as kids grow into toddlerhood and get bigger. So, I mean, sleep needs change, right? They drop down in naps. They don't need as much daytime sleep. So a lot of times I'll hear from toddler parents like, why is my child suddenly refusing to go to sleep between 7 and 8 like they always have, or they're waking in the middle of the night or waking early in the morning? And it could be that they're sleeping too much during the day. They need fewer naps or a shorter nap. And so those kinds of sleep needs change developmentally. Also, a lot of developmental stuff pops up for little ones, like they have fears as they get older, or they're afraid of the dark, or they learned something at school or daycare that scares them. And so now they're afraid to go to sleep. So that needs to be handled in a certain way. There's also a lot of separation anxiety that can pop up around age 2. It pops up like at 9 months old, and then again between 18 months and 2 years old. There are a lot of cognitive changes happening too. So for babies, we see a lot of their developmental new skills. They're rolling over, they're sitting up, they're standing, they're walking. We don't see as much of it for toddlers, but it's happening. A lot of times it's a language burst and their brains are just so busy. So being able to understand kind of that they're going through different developmental changes. A lot of regressions can happen, and I say regressions in quotes, based on things like starting daycare or potty training or having a new sibling join the family. And so these kinds of big changes that happen for them that can definitely disrupt their sleep.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so happy that you touched on that sort of, that bedtime resistance that we often see with toddlers. And it can very often be, can coincide with the arrival of a new sibling as well. But I think it's really important to think about, giving parents a little bit of information about when those nap changes are likely to happen. So can you talk to like when are babies typically transitioning from 3 naps down to 2, or 2 naps down to 1, or or dropping the nap altogether?
Yeah, sure. So usually, and everything's a range and all children are different, of course, but around 9 months is when we see the drop down to 2 naps. It can happen sooner for a lot of babies. Of course, they do it a lot earlier, but if they're taking short naps and they're not gonna be able to make it to bedtime at 6 or 7 months, they might not be ready to drop down to just the 2 naps. So I see it happening closer to 8 or 9 months. It can happen as early as 6 though. And then basically they're living on the 2 nap life, which is really great until somewhere between 12 and 18 months, they drop down to 1 nap. And even though that can seem really scary for a lot of parents, I love the 1 nap life. I thought it was great because you know exactly when it's going to happen. You can plan your whole day around it. So that happens between 12 and 18 months a lot of times. And again, you're going to see signs of this, right? Like they're not tired enough at bedtime, or they're starting to suddenly wake up in the middle of the night. They've never done that since they were 4 months old. They're having early mornings. So time to drop down in the nap.
Or you'll see that nap resistance as well. You'll sit there, that they may not be as tired, particularly when you're, transitioning from 2 down to 1, you may not see that it may take them, 15, 20, 30 minutes to fall asleep. Absolutely. For that, for those naps, and which is usually sort of a sign that they need to have a little bit more time in between the naps to build up enough pressure for them to fall asleep. So, and so I'm really, and the other thing that I would love families to know is that there's a lot of, there's a huge range of normal when it comes to, when babies are likely to be dropping those naps. And as Dr. Aubrie said, that, say, for example, that, transition from 2 down to 1 usually happens somewhere between 12 and 18 months, but it might happen a little bit earlier, or it may happen a little bit later. And then similarly, when babies are dropping the nap altogether, there's a huge range in what is normal. Some babies will drop it at age 2, other kids won't drop it until sort of age 4 or 5. But again, it's something that, we really want families to sort of to really take a look at. And it's very often sort of something that we can adjust fairly easily when we're seeing that bedtime resistance in toddlers, or those, middle of the night wakings, or those early mornings. Look at the timing of the nap and the length of the nap. So it could be that, it's so hard. It is so hard to wake a toddler, when you're enjoying that beautiful, nap time. But if it's starting to impact the night too much, you may want to think about cutting it back before you would cut it out altogether. So it could be that your toddler goes from taking a 3-hour nap to a 2.5-hour nap to a 2-hour nap to a 1.5-hour nap to a 1-hour nap perhaps. And very often cutting back that nap can actually buy us more nighttime sleep than we give up. So it's not a 1-for-1 trade. So if we cut the nap back by 30 minutes, very often that'll buy us an hour at nighttime. So I don't want families to think that, oh gosh, I'm just, I would rather have the nap, the sleep during the day and happy to give up the sleep at nighttime. Very often it's not that 1-for-1 trade. So just keep that in mind, that if you are seeing that bedtime resistance, your baby is having a sort of a long or a late nap, that it could be sort of a fairly easy way to, to get those night times under control.
Yeah, such a good point. It's very true.
So the other thing that I wanted to chat about is your sleep guides. Can you tell us a little bit about your sleep guides?
Yes, oh, sure. So basically my guides start out as being educational, and I have 3 different guides, one for newborns, one for children 4 to 18 months. That's really a sleep training guide, and then a toddler guide, 18 months to 3 years old. Mm-hmm. It's also sleep training, but it's based on developmental information and education. The newborn guide is not sleep training. It is all about setting a strong foundation. But basically it has lots of guidance on kind of how to set that foundation. If you want to sleep train down the road, it has that for you too. And lots of troubleshooting information. I'm working to turn those guides into courses as well, so that it's a little bit easier to get through, and some videos. And so it's not only sleep training information. If you're not interested in sleep training, there's still lots of helpful education in there. But if you want to at some point, it has that for you too, some plans in there.
Amazing. Okay, that's great. Now, we have got some really fabulous questions that have come in. And so I would love to jump in and ask you a couple of these questions. Tell us your thoughts on dream feeds.
Okay, so me personally, I do not recommend a dream feed. Now we have to discuss what a dream feed is. So a baby eating in the night, I don't consider a dream feed. They're waking, they're hungry, you feed them, of course, but I don't recommend waking a baby to eat in the night, unless, of course, there is a medical or health issue, or you were told to do that by your doctor, of course, and that's different. But a lot of times the dream feed starts out as something that we think is going to be helpful. If I wake my baby before I go to sleep, give them a feed, then they might sleep longer. It actually becomes a problem later on. Not always. A lot of parents are like, it worked great for me, but I hear a lot of parents still doing a dream feed at 8 months old. And why won't my child kind of connect their sleep cycles? It's because in my experience, we're kind of teaching them that you need this feed to sleep, and that I'm telling you when you're hungry. So I would rather let them wake when they're hungry and feed them.
Yep, I love that. And it really can become this sort of fairly strong sort of sleep association, right? That they're needing that dream feed to, get themselves back to sleep, which can then become, if they're needing it at, 10 or 11, they may then, need it at 2 and at 3.
Why are they waking all night to eat?
Yes. So I'm really happy that you said that and we share that philosophy. So that's amazing. So I have, this is a great question, and I kind of answered it a little bit. Oh, no, sorry, this is for a younger baby. Okay, should you wake a baby up from a nap if they're sleeping longer than 2 hours? My baby is 2 months old, and I read that this was the case so that they recognize the difference between day and night.
So, I definitely think that you should wake a baby who's sleeping too long. It depends on your baby and that particular nap. If they're always sleeping longer than 2 hours, then yes, I would, because that's going to start to affect their nights. If this is a one-off that they're sleeping for 2 hours. What if I just let them sleep for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes? They might really need
Yeah.
that sleep.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Definitely wake them if it's going on 3 hours. But yes, we want to avoid day and night confusion for little infants. And we want to make sure they're getting their long stretches at night, not during the day.
Yeah. And also, and to that, that point, we really want to make sure that they're getting all of the calories that they need during the day, so that we can sort of gradually naturally start to cut down those calories at nighttime. And if they're sleeping too long during the day, if they're going 2.5 or 3 hours, they may be missing a feed, although those stretches between feeds might start to get a little bit too long. And if they're not getting those calories during the day, they're going to need to make up for them at nighttime. So I really think that's a great, and to your point, if your baby needs it, it's a one-off. Your baby needs to sleep 2.5 hours. Your little baby needs to sleep 2.5 hours. Go for it. But fairly consistently, we want to think about feeding those little babies every sort of 2.5 to 3 hours during the day if we can. So I really love that answer. So okay, another question. So if you already have a bedtime routine for a newborn, almost 3 months, does straying from the routine once in a blue moon cause any issues?
Oh,
Great
no.
question.
And it's a great question. It actually makes me sad because
I know.
we're so stressed out, right? We're like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I'm going to do it all right. And no, I mean, if there's a dinner, go to the dinner. If there's a special event, go to the special event. If there's a one-off, it's not going to ruin everything. I just like to say, do your best to get back on track when you're back at home.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I really love that. And look, I mean, we want you to be, enjoying life and living life. And, if it means that, occasionally the bedtime routine gets skipped, or the bedtime routine gets changed or shortened, that's totally fine. Particularly if your baby, you have such a great bedtime routine, a sort of a one-off here and there should not be throwing them. Now we've got a couple of questions about car seats, which I think are really interesting, and I would love your advice on these. So the first one is, what's the recommended maximum amount of time a baby can sleep in a car seat?
So I'm not a safety expert, but I believe it's 1 hour. So you wouldn't want to go beyond an hour in a car seat. And that might just mean kind of waking them up and changing their diaper, or getting them a feed, or kind of just repositioning them. And then also, and this might be part of your next question, but in the car seat, it should only be in the car while you're moving.
Yep. Okay, great. So this is sort of a related question, but I'm going to ask it as well. Apparently many people put a baby in a car seat and drive around for minutes or hours to get their child to fall asleep. Given how common motor vehicle accidents are, would you advise against this practice for safety reasons and or on account of establishing unhealthy habits?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's research that sleep deprived parents who are exhausted are as unable to operate a vehicle as someone who's under the influence. So you really don't want to rely on being in the car, especially if you're also exhausted. It's one thing to plan a nap during the day when you're going to pick up your other child, and they'll nap in the car for an hour while I'm driving, and that's all fine. But that being the way that you get your child to sleep tells me that you're exhausted and tired and just want this baby to go to sleep. And so I wouldn't do it for that reason alone. But also, the child relying on only being able to fall asleep in the car is not going to be something that works for you for the long term either.
Sure. Yeah. No, sure. I love that. Okay. So we have lots of questions. I hope I can get to most of them. So I'm going to sleep train my 6-month-old baby starting tomorrow night. She's breastfed when I'm home and takes the bottle with the au pair during the day. Any tips for sleep training at night and for naps? Oh, it's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, back to your point, Dr. Natalie, you want to be consistent. So whatever you're doing for nights, you want your au pair to be doing for naps as much as you can. And then as far as the feeding, the type of feeding doesn't really matter when it comes to sleep, but what is important for sleep training, if you're really starting it, is that you're not feeding to sleep and not feeding to even drowsy. So making the feed the beginning part of the routine, or not even part of the nap routine at all. So there's no getting sleepy with the feed.
Yep. Love that. Really love that. Now, This is a really great question. Are night lights okay for newborns, or should it be totally dark?
Yeah, so newborns, they don't really know what's going on. So you can have a nightlight on if it helps you. But I like to think of the parents in the newborn phase. And so for you, I want you to be sleeping. So I would recommend having it be dark once you go to sleep, and then having a nightlight to turn on when you're doing feeds or diaper changes.
Yeah, I really love that. So, and look, you will see when you have your, newborns will really probably sleep anywhere and everywhere. But it's still great to be, thinking about setting up that sleep environment that is going to be conducive to sleep for them. But to Dr. Aubrey's point, it's sort of all about the parents in those early couple of weeks, particularly. So if a nightlight's going to help you, I think that's great. But longer term, we really want to think about having that room as dark as possible. Babies are typically not, don't develop a fear of the dark before age 2. Some of them never develop a fear of the dark. But we don't want you to think that your 4-month-old is going to be afraid of the dark and needs a nightlight. So I would really love to encourage you to have those rooms as dark as possible.
Yes, agreed.
So, okay, I've got another great question. I want to go out of town with my baby, but I'm afraid that my 8-month-old will have trouble falling asleep in a different environment at different times. Do you have any tips for travel?
Yes. So, I mean, trying your best to stay on the schedule that you have for your baby. So that will help as far as naps and, again, a bedtime routine, and it can be shortened. Bringing things from home that are familiar, like your sound machine, your sleep sack, even the crib sheet to go on a pack and play, can smell like home. And then just, like I said, trying to kind of recreate the home environment as best as you can. And then just enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. I love it. And also too, if things do get off track when you travel, know that you can get right back on track, when you get home. So it could be, we see so often that, when you're traveling, that, your baby may, wake up a couple of times during the night because the environment may feel unfamiliar to them. If you're staying at someone else's house and you need to go in and feed them, or you need to go in and pick them up and soothe them when you wouldn't dream of doing that at home, I say go for it, and then just get yourself back on track as soon as you get home. What we don't want is that you're getting off track when you're traveling, and then that off track lasts for another couple of months. So as soon as you get home, back on track, back to that, consistent bedtime routine, that consistency during the night, and doing whatever you would normally do, during the night. But if things get a little bit off track while you're away, don't let it ruin your vacation, and don't be too worried about it. You can get right back on track when you get home.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a 4-month-old who just started daycare, and so far the longest he naps there is 35 minutes, but at home he sleeps better. Should I avoid trying to drop the 4th nap until it becomes regular at daycare as he gets closer to 5 months?
So, I like, daycare is a tough one, and you can only control what you can control, and you can't control daycare naps. So do what you can at home. As far as dropping the nap, if you were planning on doing that anyway at home, then that's okay to kind of go through with that. Sometimes dropping a nap actually helps the other naps kind of increase in length. But it sounds like it's just an adjustment period, and I wouldn't stress too much about it.
Yeah. Okay. And we have another similar question, and I would love to hear your advice on this. Do you have any tips for helping a baby adapt to daycare naps, 4-month-old and struggling?
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to the travel. If you can bring things from home that are similar, a sleep sack that they're familiar with, the crib sheet, something that smells like you even, things that they can kind of relate to home, that can be helpful. So, I mean, I would also check in with the daycare that you're using, because sometimes they will not follow your requests, and sometimes they will do things that you want. And so kind of checking in with them of what they're doing there. Sometimes they're doing more than you're doing at home, and that can be disrupting their sleep. Sometimes they, so I would kind of check in with them. But again, it's just one of those things that it will work out. Babies do adjust. They're still little, so short naps are very common at that age. So the more that you can just kind of control what you can at home, and maybe bedtime needs to be earlier that night, or on the weekends we kind of catch up on that daytime sleep. It's okay.
Yeah. And look, and it's an adjustment period for everyone,
Yeah.
starting daycare, mom is, heading back, mom and or, and or a partner are heading back to work, which can be a huge adjustment. And, it can be incredibly stressful when your baby is not napping at daycare when they were napping, beautifully at home. So we feel you and we hear you, and know that it will get better soon. They really do adjust to daycare. And also too, when we're thinking about, when they're so little, they're still, as Dr. Aubrie said, it's really normal for them to have these, super short naps. As they get a little bit older, those naps are going to start to consolidate, and they're going to have these longer naps, fairly naturally anyway. So, just give yourself a bit of time and a bit of breathing space, and your baby should adjust fairly soon. Okay, I have another great question. My baby is 6 weeks old. Congratulations. Currently, my husband brings the baby into the bedroom from the nursery 2 to 3 times during the night because I'm exclusively breastfeeding. We turn on a small lamp during the feed. She struggles to fall back to sleep when she returns to the nursery. Do you think it's too disruptive for her, and I should go to the nursery to breastfeed her?
I mean, are you recovering from a C-section? Are you able to? I mean, I don't know. I think that the lamp maybe can be playing a part, and yes, maybe going from room to room. But if that's what works best for you, then I don't want to add to your stress in the night if you need to get up and go to the nursery. But I guess it depends on your situation. If you're able to, then I would like to keep the baby in her environment and just keep kind of the stimulation as low as possible. So just one of those little really dim lights that you can kind of turn on just for the feed, just to be able to make sure the latch is there and things are going okay. And then right back down.
I would actually say that it's really, really normal for babies to struggle to get back to sleep, in those early weeks. So it's really, normal for them to, to not be able to self-soothe. So if your husband needs to be helping her, back to sleep, it's really, really normal. And I would love to encourage you to be able to do, or for one of you, to be able to do that. We know that babies just can't, most babies just cannot self-soothe in those first couple of months. And so that is the time where you need to be soothing them. So if you need to be, or if your husband can, help soothe your baby back to sleep, I would really love to encourage you to do that, knowing that your baby is going to learn how to fall back to sleep fairly easily over the next couple of months. But that can be it really can be really tricky for families, and I don't want you to feel guilty about needing to rest or needing to to stay in bed. If that is if that works for your family, and you have an amazing partner who's willing to go and get the baby, I would love you to to do that, try that. Keep trying that if you can as well. But to Dr. Aubrey's point, try lots of different things. If you think it's going to help, for you to go to the nursery, then absolutely you can, try that as well. But I don't want you to feel too guilty about what you're doing, because I think you're doing really, truly an amazing job.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. 6 weeks is very normal to not be able to get back to sleep on their own.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's really little. Okay. All right. Now we still have got, so many questions to get through, but I'm really conscious of time. And I really am just so, so grateful, Dr. Aubrie, for you joining us this evening and sharing all of your wisdom. And I wanted to announce our giveaway winner. It's Seijitsu Najase, I think, is the name of the winner this evening. So I'm sorry if I'm truly, truly sorry if I butchered your name. But one of our community team members will be in touch with you fairly shortly. So again, congratulations. And again, we're going to be announcing our our ultimate giveaway winner, over the next couple of days before the end of the week. So in wrapping up, I just want to again thank Dr. Aubrie for her time and her wisdom and guidance, and taking time out of your very busy day with 2, soon to be 3 children. And we're just so happy to be partnering with you. And thanks again, so much for all of your help. So, and thanks
for
everyone
having
for
me.
joining us.